Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode 295. Please like this program and allow it to reach its maximum potential. And thank you once again, whether it is Facebook or YouTube, your liking the program will help it reach its maximum potential. Today is Tuesday, 14th of December, and here are the main points. Prime Minister Modi inaugurates Kashi Vishwanath corridor, witnessed by millions on TV and in person. The spiritual structure and his deep devotion to his faith was visible and witnessed by the world. Sree namaskar, and how are things going at your end, sir?
Namaskar, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening to everybody. Things are looking excellent. I've seen some of the pictures and images of the Prime Minister Modi ji's inauguration of the Kashi Vishwanath corridor, also some of the recordings. I couldn't see most of the program. I couldn't see live. I think it's very historic and a tremendous, by way of, from a spiritual construct point of view, the long overdue, and it's wonderful that that project, the first phase of which is complete.
And Prime Minister Modi invokes Lord Mahadev Shiva in Varanasi, offers prayers to Lord Vishwanath, has lunch with the construction workers, and attends evening Ganga Aarti. India successfully launches supersonic missile-assisted torpedo system, enhancing capabilities of anti-submarine warfare. Sridharji, a little bit context here because it's a little bit long-winded. Perhaps you can help us understand what is this missile that India has launched.
It's a supersonic missile launched from within one of the can be launched from one of the naval ships, and it is capable of destroying the submarines that pose threat to the Indian Navy and also other assets that it is capable of, any submarines in the waters. So it is very much an anti-submarine warfare capability, which is built in with this hypersonic missile that India has successfully launched and tested, bringing in a remarkable kind of a feature in terms of its capabilities. Remember that submarines, as far as submarines is concerned, India has capabilities that it has built with both Russia as well as, if I'm correct, even with Turkey. And it also has capabilities that it's looking at with France. And this is the same stuff that France was supposed to give Australia. And then, of course, Australia bought the latest new submarine capabilities from the United States. So I think what India is demonstrating is that it has now capability in its armory, and it is very much cognizant of what it needs to do to augment and be capable of deflecting potentially from, but none else other than China.
Indian Council for Medical Research develops testing kit for Omicron that can detect the virus in 90 minutes. So this is truly impressive.
Getting to ICMR, Omicron has been causing havoc. We'll get to that when we present at the end of the session a chart which gives you the global. But the fact that India has now come up with a testing capability that can detect the presence of this Omicron virus in 90 minutes is a very important breakthrough. I'm sure that they will be able to scale down the time in due course. We do have now anti-rapid tests which can detect COVID, any type of COVID virus, not Omicron, within, not Omicron specifically, in less than 15 minutes. But this is 90 minutes for this new virus strand that is creating havoc around the world.
And Indonesia demonstrates its balanced foreign policy in a back-to-back meeting with the United States Foreign Secretary Anthony Blinken and Russian security official Nikolai Patrushev. Sridharji, this is very interesting.
It is very interesting. The reason being that you can also see the strategic importance of Indonesia by virtue of its location, which is almost at the intersection of the Indo-Pacific to South China Sea. And it's a vast array of islands, almost 7,000 plus islands. So Indonesia is now saying it is not taking an aligned approach, but is willing to talk to United States and willing to speak with Russia equally, and use the partnership very appropriately as it sees it. And the fact that the meeting gap between Joko we do the meeting was less than an hour or what, it's also a reflection that both the U.S. and Russia accepts that they have no choice but other than to accept each other's footprint within the partnership paradigm of Indonesia. Remember, we covered yesterday in DGI, Indonesia is one of the countries that is also in the radar of Prime Minister Modi as he kicks off his 2022 campaign by way of visiting various overseas locations to strengthen bilateral partnership.
And Blinken will travel to Malaysia and Thailand, completing his ASEAN tour with China and Myanmar in focus. I hope he doesn't go to China also.
No, he's not going. There's the ASEAN, very specific ASEAN trip, extending the footprint. So he definitely touching Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. You remember that he had made an earlier visit to Philippines and Taiwan. So he's making his rounds to make sure that at least now the foreign policy and more visibility of Antony Blinken truly as a Secretary of State is visible. I think the Biden's foreign policy at least beginning to stitch some partnerships together.
And South Korea to start the process for joining CPTPP membership following China and Taiwan applications, not to be left behind in the regional economic treaties. Sir, this TPP did not have South Korea to start with?
No, I think that the South Korea was outside. So therefore, South Korea is now making its application. Remember that there were 14 nations. There was 10 nations at the ASEAN. Then there is Japan. Then there was even Mexico from the other side. Australia, New Zealand were the other members. So Korea is making its footprint into this foray, recognizing that it doesn't want to be left out of any broad coalition that gets formed on the economic front. Remember, India is the 15th country. India has stood outside. India felt that it already has existing partnerships, and the CPTPP may give China the gateway, which is one of the reasons why it has stood outside. Japan also has had some apprehensions, but Japan is one of the leaders.
And Putin tells UK PM Johnson that NATO forces are threatening Russia from Ukraine and it may deploy mid-range nuclear missiles in Europe. EU stands united on imposing sanctions against Russia. This thing is a big history to it. There's a lot of money laundering that has been alleged that was done by Russia just before the gates closed. There was one bank in one country that was accepting. A long story short, this is a mess that has been going on for a long time. Sridharji, your thoughts on what you think, how this is going to play out?
I think how this is going to play out is that there will be some type of a compromise that is going to happen between Russia and Ukraine. Very similar to China and Taiwan, Russia will not take its eyes off Ukraine. The issue will continue to kind of loom around, and how EU deals with it remains. EU's history of dealing with Russia or any other nation, for example, Russia has problems, EU has problems with Iran, EU has had problems with China, EU has had problems with Belarus, a small nation. EU has had problems with some of the Eastern European smaller nations by way of its compliance, by being compliance with the EU policies. So therefore, how EU is going to respond, remains a big question mark. They will only do if Americans take them on to do something, and together they come forward with far more forthright policies. What is also hanging on the head of the EU is this Nord Stream 2 pipeline deal, which is pivotal for the supply of gas, much needed in Europe, especially around this particular period. So it remains to be seen. To give you a very short answer, all sides will win, no sides lose. That means that the problem will continue to persist and will be sitting right in the middle. Remember, the Russians warned yesterday that they want a security blanket, and the security blanket includes lack of NATO membership. That they would not want NATO membership to be granted to Ukraine.
And Britain reports first death from Omicron variant as people line up outside vaccine centers to get vaccinated. Nuclear deal with Iran will soon be empty shells, warn EY official. I think this is EU officials. Sridharji, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we have been saying this. Israel has been saying it, that Mr. Biden enacted this drama because he somehow felt that he has to reset the Obama policy. So therefore, he needs to discuss and bring Iran. And, some of the Iranian groups within United States were activists in promoting Biden against Mr. President Trump. So it's time for Mr. Biden to show some favors. And so he renegotiated, knowing fully well that Iran is not going to agree. And so Iran has been, making its forays across. Now EU is reaffirming that, hey, there's no deal because what we have is an empty shell. And this is exactly what Israel had warned. Iran just wanted to use discussions as a vehicle while it continued to do enrichment of the uranium. I think we had discussed this in quite a few DGI sessions. Iran's issue will be dealt with by Israel in its own manner. Whether US or EU toe their line doesn't matter.
Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Al Nahyan hosted Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett in the first ever public face-to-face meeting in signs of growing signs of a partnership. Israeli airstrikes targeted 3 chemical factories in Syria near Damascus and homes, as per intelligence reports in Washington Post. And Defense Minister Benny Gantz presents Iran attack timeline to US and US Security Chief Jake Sullivan to visit Israel to discuss Iran. So things are definitely heating up. Israel is not keeping quiet. It's not only aiming at Iran, it's also looking at some of the satellite countries that sort of get under the influence of Iran, isn't it, sir?
It is. The most important point here is that this is the June 8th strike that happened in the Syrian, in and around Damascus and Homs. Now, the intelligence reports confirm that the attack actually was by Israel, and they took out some of the chemical plants where, potentially posing threat to the safety and sovereignty of Israel. So we will know very similar what happened with regard to that Letico port that happened just recently in late November, early December. So we're beginning to slowly get information as to how strategic assets are being neutralized, or what you call as the potentially threatening assets within Syria and Iran are being neutralized by Israel. And you only come to know much later. And I think you will begin to see similar type of things around the nuclear side as it deals with Iran. The fact that the defense minister has now, and they have been saying this all the time, has basically given probably a plan B, and they within their pocket, they have plan B, plan C, plan D, as to what they need to do and what they will do with Iran, is again a very compelling kind of piece of evidence that Israel is prepared to act.
And the United States takes stock of the damages from the weekend tornadoes that devastated Kentucky and the adjacent states, with the death toll now approaching 70 plus. Biden to tour, and FEMA is going to be swinging into action. As crime rates increase across the nation, most notably in at least 12 Democratic mayor-led cities, such as New York, White House puts the blame on others rather than introspecting. Sridharji, this is usual politicians speak, do something but blame somebody else.
It is. I think that they just I mean, it's quite amazing that there are very, very specific states with data, cities within states with data. If you give me 30 seconds, let me tell you what those venues are. And then the Democrat, the Psaki and Biden and Madam Harris says that all this is due to COVID-related issues and totally abdicating that there's a fundamental law and order issues, including some of these states have withdrawn, the plainclothes policemen who go around and detect in early manner because, uniform people hide and get away. But they get away and they have been withdrawn. So basically saying you have free access and free run to do what you want to do. I just want to give you the names of the cities which are impacted as a result of this very poor policy. Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, Toledo in Ohio, Columbus in Ohio, Baton Rouge in Louisiana, Austin, Texas, Louisville, Kentucky, St. Paul, Minnesota, Portland, Oregon, Tucson, Arizona, Albuquerque, New Mexico. This excludes New York, Los Angeles, and even for that matter, Washington, D.C. So you can see, and Chicago. Chicago is also excluded. So you can see these are 12 new cities across these states where the homicides have dramatically increased, not just in 2020, but also in 2021. And Biden and Harris are dismissive because they have a very sympathetic media running the agenda.
And from coffee to gasoline, inflation is felt across all categories as prices soar in the United States. Salvadoran president accuses the United States of supporting communist opposition on the back of illegal alien crossings. The United States claims fewer than 12 Americans left in Afghanistan who wish to leave the country, none to face punishment for the ill-fated drone strike that took civilian lives, US says. And now let us take a look at the global COVID situation. Sridharji, take it away, sir.
Right. If the chart can be brought up, we'll get into this. Yes. Here's the fascinating chart. Okay. So today we have 271 million total cases, of which 5.3 million deaths and 243 million people have recovered. So that's a very positive news within the number of people who have recovered. But when you go down, it's pretty close to almost 10% of the total cases is active still. That's about 21.2 million, 21.99 million or 22 million active cases against a total of 271 million. Now, go down. Who are the top 12 nations that make up this particular list? The top 12 nations that make up the list starts with United States. United States is 10.044 million active, sir. So we are the most active. We have the most active cases, and many of them, over 50%, are fully vaccinated. Now, if that is the case, is there any nation that is banning United States? No, we are banning South Africa, and we are banning other countries, which have very small cases, while we have major issue looming within United States. The glaring numbers, the active cases numbers, who is number two? 1.2 million people in UK. Then 985,000 active cases in Russia, 955,000 in Germany, 820,000 in active cases in France, 611,000 active cases in Netherlands. So you're beginning to see ramp up of the numbers, and most of them coming from Omicron. So these are dramatic shift in numbers by way of active cases. And as people had predicted, this multiple mutation rapidly spreads once it is into the country. And while it may not be as fatal as or as damaging as the previous versions, but it does spread. And the current two injection or two vaccine approach is inadequate to deal with the spread of the virus and they need this booster and other doses, which is the reason why the earlier point that we covered around United Kingdom, people lining up for the booster doses is a reflection that there is a slowly a fear growing about the rapid spread of these viruses.
And let's take a quick look at markets. Sree, take it away, and then we can call it a wrap.
The markets on Monday finished a bit on the back of a tremendous rise. Is obviously these gyrations happen within when you hear some sentiments in the market. But that's again, as we have repeatedly said, that the markets are up. So most of the other commodities are operating within the band, whether it is interest rates is less than 1.5%, 1.4344. Oil is within that $71, $73 barrel. The price effect of that will flow in slowly into the system, but the prices have already gone up by about 33%, which is why you have a high rate of inflation that is visible across the market. As far as the crypto is concerned, I think that it is feeling the ill effects of the situation, and most of the cryptos have taken a big hit. Let's see how they finish wrap up the year. As we look ahead in the Tuesdays, the futures are pointing to a favorable or more, an uptick in the data relative to Monday, as they await two important data on Tuesday and Wednesday. One is the inflation data, and the second is the Fed policy on what they're going to likely to do with regard to the interest rates. So those two pieces of data are expected. If those who are interested in trillion-dollar corporations, we'll probably cover this again. We had covered Amazon and so on, but we'll just cover this in one of the market summary sessions, which we do exclusively over the weekends. But Apple is within a striking distance of becoming a $3 trillion corporation. All it requires is a 2% uptick in the market. It just basically tells you many of these institutions, the top 10 institutions, which is the 5 or 6, are all tech companies, which are all becoming behemoths by way of market valuation.
And that wraps it up. Thank you very much, Sridharji. We'll be back again tomorrow, bright and early. Namaskar, and see you all very soon.
Namaskar, good morning or good evening, or have a good day. And again, continue to support our program. And, we are very soon will be hitting triple century, and it would not be possible without all your support. But we need more support and more financial support besides, putting more likes so that more people, begin to watch and the message is spread.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. Namaskar.
Namaskar.